We value your years of service, Diane, but it's time for new ideas. Your position has been terminated with immediate effect. Like old scent, the words lingered between us. Jillian Ames sat perfectly erect across the immaculate conference table, her face bland and professional. She had an MBA from an Ivy League university and credentials from prominent consulting companies, which she managed to bring up in every corporate meeting. At 42, she was 17 years my younger. I remained still. Rather, I stood up, held out my hand, and said, "Wishing you and the company continued success." Despite the wrath swirling inside of me, my voice stayed calm. Jillian let out a soft breath that suggested me she had anticipated sobs, entreaties, or at least some opposition. She gave me a quick, casual, and ambiguous handshake. Your transformation will be aided by human resources. Given corporate policy, we're providing a generous 6 months of severance. After 25 years of work, her tone implied that I should be thankful for this meager amount. Diane Mullins is my name. I was the Vice President of Partnerships at Silverstone Naturals until 10 minutes ago. I am 59 years old. When I joined, we were a small health company based in a repurposed warehouse in Dallas, Texas. We distributed 3 product lines throughout precisely 47 outlets in those early days. Our health products and organic vitamins are now available in more than 5,000 stores across the country. Every significant alliance that helped create this business was arranged by me. I was the one who came up with innovative solutions when bigger rivals attempted to wrest valuable shelf space away from us. During the epidemic, when supply chain problems endangered our expansion, I found substitute components without sacrificing quality. I looked at the medals on my wall as I packed my office, the plaques I had won through years of hard work, outstanding contribution to industry standards, partnership vendor of the year, and excellence in business. Every honor was the culmination of many hours of effort, networking, and strategic planning. Catherine, my assistant, emerged at the doorway, her eyes rimmed with red. "This is wrong," she said in a low voice. "Everyone is discussing it. No one knows why." I gave a soft grin. "Catherine, it's business. Nothing private." However, we were both aware it was untrue. Since arriving 6 months ago, Jillian had been methodically purging the old guard. Her favorite euphemism for ageism was fresh perspectives, and my firing was only the latest in her crusade. I walked by the shining sign that proclaimed Silverstone Naturals, wellness without compromise, as I lugged my box of possessions toward the elevator. Some sacrifices, I couldn't help but believe, were clearly acceptable. Looking back, I should have seen this coming. The first warning sign appeared when Jillian arrived at Silverstone Naturals last October. The board had hired her with great fanfare, touting her as a transformational leader who would take our company to the next level in the competitive wellness market. At her welcome reception, I extended my hand and introduced myself, Diane Mullins, Vice President of Partnerships. I've been with Silverstone for 25 years. Looking forward to working together. She smiled, but her eyes assessed me coolly. Wonderful to meet you, Diane. 25 years, that's impressive loyalty. I'm excited to bring some fresh energy to our strategies. Fresh energy seemed innocent enough then, but within weeks, Jillian hired 3 consultants from her previous firm. They conducted what she called a talent landscape assessment, essentially evaluating every executive and director-level employee. I noticed they spent considerably more time with the younger team members. During my evaluation interview, the lead consultant asked, "How do you stay current with digital marketing trends? And are you comfortable with rapid technological changes?" The questions felt pointed, designed to expose perceived generational weaknesses. At dinner that evening, I mentioned my concerns to my husband, Robert. "I think they're building a case against the older executives," I said, pushing my salad around the plate. Robert squeezed my hand. "You've survived 4 CEOs and 2 acquisitions. You'll outlast Jillian too." I wasn't so sure. The following week, Thomas Grayson, our 62-year-old chief operations officer, was encouraged to retire. A 36-year-old from Jillian's former consulting firm replaced him. 2 weeks later, our 57-year-old marketing director was restructured out of her position. Despite these warning signs, I had one source of comfort. 5 years earlier, I had made a strategic personal investment that was now proving more valuable than ever. Through careful financial planning and some inheritance money from my mother, I had acquired a significant silent stake in CoreLogic's Distributors, the company that handled 70% of Silverstone's national fulfillment contracts. It had been a calculated risk. I saw how dependent Silverstone had become on CoreLogic's specialized services and nationwide infrastructure. Our wellness products required temperature-controlled environments, specialized handling, and precise delivery schedules. Finding an alternative would be nearly impossible without significant disruption. No one at Silverstone knew about my investment. I had established a holding LLC called Meadwork Ventures to manage my business interests outside the company. It was perfectly legal and ethical. I had disclosed having outside investments without specifying what they were, as per company policy. I never imagined this silent investment would become my insurance policy. The morning after my termination, I woke at 6 a.m. as usual. For the first time in 25 years, I had nowhere to go. The house felt eerily quiet without the usual rush to prepare for work. I made coffee and sat on my back porch, watching the sunrise and contemplating my uncertain future. At 59, I was technically too young to retire, but old enough to face significant challenges in the job market. I knew the statistics. The average job search for executives over 50 lasted nearly a year, twice as long as for younger counterparts, and most ended up accepting positions with lower compensation and status than their previous roles. Robert joined me on the porch, coffee in hand. "What's next?" he asked, his voice gentle. I sighed. "I don't know yet, but I'm not done." My phone buzzed with a text message from Harold Peters, CoreLogic's CEO. "Heard what happened. Dinner tonight, 7 p.m. at Giovanni's." Harold and I had a unique relationship. While he knew me as a Silverstone executive, he was also aware that I was a significant investor in his company through Meadwork Ventures. We maintained strict boundaries between these two roles, never discussing proprietary information that would create conflicts of interest. That evening at Giovanni's, a quiet Italian restaurant in downtown Dallas, Harold greeted me with a sympathetic embrace. 25 years, and that's how they thank you? Shameful. As we settled into our booth, Harold got straight to the point. "Jillian Ames called me this morning. Wants to review our partnership agreement and explore more favorable terms. Translation: she wants to cut costs at our expense." I nodded, unsurprised. That's her style. Quick wins to impress the board without considering long-term consequences. Harold sipped his wine. "Our contract with Silverstone comes up for renewal in 4 months. Normally, I'd start preliminary discussions now to ensure continuity." "And what are you thinking?" I asked, careful to maintain the boundary between my roles as investor and former Silverstone executive. As CEO, I need to protect CoreLogic's interests. Silverstone wants premium service at budget prices. That's not sustainable for us. He paused. "As a major investor, I wanted you to know we're considering non-renewal if Jillian insists on renegotiating terms downward." The implications were clear. Without CoreLogic, Silverstone would face significant disruption. Finding a replacement distributor with comparable nationwide infrastructure would take months, if not longer. Retailers wouldn't wait. They'd reduce Silverstone's shelf space and give it to competitors who could reliably deliver. I took a thoughtful sip of my wine. "Harold, I trust you to make the right decision for CoreLogic, but I'd like to propose something else for your consideration." Harold raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening. What if we created something new?" I leaned forward slightly. "A wellness brand built from the ground up with modern supply chain efficiency. No legacy systems, no outdated thinking." As I outlined my vision, I saw Harold's expression shift from sympathy to interest. "Interesting," he said when I finished. "Very interesting indeed." 2 weeks after my termination, I received a call from Catherine, my former assistant. "Diane, have you heard what's happening here?" she whispered, clearly calling from somewhere private within the Silverstone offices. "What's going on?" I asked, settling into my home office chair. "It's chaotic. Jillian's implementing all these changes simultaneously: new packaging, reformulated products, different marketing approaches. And now there's talk about distribution problems." I maintained a neutral tone. "Distribution problems?" "Yes. Apparently, CoreLogic isn't being cooperative about Jillian's cost-cutting demands. They're saying the current contract must be honored until expiration, and they're not accepting the new terms." This wasn't news to me. Harold had kept me informed about Jillian's increasingly aggressive approach to renegotiating terms, including her threat to explore alternative distribution options if CoreLogic wouldn't accommodate her demands. "That sounds challenging," I replied diplomatically. "The board called an emergency meeting yesterday." Jillian tried to keep it quiet, but I heard her secretary scheduling it. "Something about supply chain contingencies." After thanking Catherine for the update, I spent the afternoon reaching out to my industry contacts. The wellness product landscape had changed dramatically in recent years, with consumers increasingly demanding transparency, sustainability, and authentic stories behind their purchases. This created a perfect opening for a new entrant with the right approach, and without the baggage of an established brand trying to reinvent itself. Later that week, I met with Andrew Lambert, a brilliant product developer who had been sidelined at Silverstone during Jillian's reorganization. Like me, he had been labeled as insufficiently forward-thinking, despite his track record of successful innovations. "How are you holding up, Andrew?" I asked as we settled at a quiet corner table in a local coffee shop. He shrugged. "They moved me to special projects, which means I have no real responsibilities anymore. I'm essentially being paid to do nothing until they find a reason to let me go." "What would you say to starting fresh somewhere else?" I asked carefully. Andrew's eyes lit up. "Depends on where and with whom." I slid a folder across the table. Inside was a preliminary business plan for Evergreen Wellness, a new company focused on personalized wellness products with sustainable sourcing and transparent manufacturing processes. "I'm assembling a team," I explained, "people who understand this industry but aren't afraid to reinvent how things are done. I need a product development leader." Andrew studied the materials carefully. "This is impressive, Diane. But starting from scratch, the investment required would be substantial." "I have investors lined up," I said, not mentioning that the primary investor was myself, through Meadork Ventures. "And I've secured preliminary distribution capabilities." Again, I kept CoreLogic's involvement vague. By the time we finished our coffee, Andrew had agreed to join Evergreen Wellness as soon as he could gracefully exit Silverstone. Over the next 2 weeks, I recruited 4 more key team members, experienced professionals who had either been pushed out by Jillian or were growing increasingly dissatisfied under her leadership. Each brought valuable expertise and industry connections. Meanwhile, Silverstone's distribution challenges were intensifying. Through my industry network, I learned that major retailers were receiving notice that Silverstone deliveries might face disruptions in the coming months. This was standard practice when a distribution contract was at risk. CoreLogic was legally obligated to inform retail partners of potential supply chain changes. The notifications sent ripples of concern through the retail community. Buyers began reaching out to Silverstone for reassurance, only to receive vague responses that further eroded confidence. Precisely as I had anticipated, Jillian's cost-cutting strategy was backfiring spectacularly. By trying to pressure CoreLogic into accepting less favorable terms, she had destabilized Silverstone's most critical business relationship. 1 month after my departure from Silverstone, I received an unexpected visitor. Monica Reynolds, chairwoman of Silverstone's board of directors, called asking to meet privately. We had always maintained a cordial professional relationship, though she had ultimately supported Jillian's decision to restructure the executive team. We met at a quiet restaurant on the outskirts of Dallas. Monica looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes and a tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there before. "Thank you for meeting me, Diane," she said after we ordered. "I imagine you're not feeling particularly charitable towards Silverstone right now." "I spent 25 years building that company," I replied evenly. "My feelings are complex." She nodded. "That's exactly why I'm here. We have a situation, and I think you might be the only person who can help us understand it." "What situation is that?" I asked, though I had a good idea. Monica leaned forward. "Our distribution network is falling apart. CoreLogic has formally notified us that they won't be renewing their contract when it expires in 3 months. They've also rejected all proposed modifications to the existing agreement." I kept my expression neutral. "That sounds challenging." "It's more than challenging. It's potentially catastrophic. We've approached 6 other distribution companies. None can match CoreLogic's capabilities, especially their temperature-controlled facilities for our plant-based products." "What does Jillian say about all this?" I asked, genuinely curious about how my replacement was handling the crisis. Monica's expression darkened. "She insists we can build our own distribution network, but the board has seen the numbers. It would take 2 years and millions in capital expenditure to create something comparable. We don't have that kind of time or money." "So, why are you telling me this?" I asked, though I knew exactly why. "You built our partnership with CoreLogic from the ground up. They trusted you. Harold Peters won't even take Jillian's calls anymore, but I'm betting he'd talk to you." Monica looked at me hopefully. "Would you consider acting as a consultant to help salvage this relationship?" The irony was almost too perfect. Jillian had pushed me out for fresh perspectives, and now the board wanted my help to fix the mess she had created. "I'm flattered that you thought of me," I said carefully. "But I've actually been quite busy with a new venture." "A new venture?" Monica looked surprised. "Yes, I'm launching a wellness brand called Evergreen Wellness. We're focusing on personalized nutrition supplements with sustainable sourcing." I smiled. "In fact, we've already secured nationwide distribution with CoreLogic." Monica asked, connecting the dots immediately. I nodded. "Among others." The color drained from Monica's face as she realized the implications. "Diane, is there something I should know about your relationship with CoreLogic?" "I've always had excellent professional relationships with our business partners," I replied noncommittally. Before Monica could press further, my phone buzzed with a message from Harold. "Riverstream Retail interested in Evergreen products. Meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Available?" Riverstream was one of Silverstone's largest retail customers, representing nearly 15% of their total sales. The fact that they were already exploring alternatives was telling. "I should get going," I said, signaling for the check. "I have an early meeting tomorrow." As we parted ways, Monica looked defeated. "Diane, if you reconsider helping us with CoreLogic, the board would be extremely grateful." I smiled politely. "I'll keep that in mind, but as I said, I'm quite focused on my new venture now. Sometimes fresh perspectives are exactly what the market needs." The hint of my own words being turned back against Silverstone wasn't lost on Monica. Her expression told me she finally understood that her company's distribution crisis was no accident. The following week brought news that sent shockwaves through the wellness industry. Jillian Ames, in a desperate attempt to solve Silverstone's distribution crisis, had announced an ambitious plan to build their own distribution network. The announcement included a substantial capital raise, diluting existing shareholders' value, and projected an 18-month timeline for completion. Silverstone's stock dropped 17% in a single day. I watched the developments with detached interest while focusing on building Evergreen Wellness. We had secured office space in a modern building in downtown Dallas, assembled a core team of 15 experienced professionals, many former Silverstone employees, and finalized our initial product line of personalized nutritional supplements. Our partnership with CoreLogic gave us a significant advantage. With Harold's support, we had designed our supply chain to maximize efficiency from the beginning, rather than trying to retrofit outdated systems as Silverstone had done for years. Just as we were finalizing our launch plans, I received another unexpected call. This time, it was from Benjamin Wright, Silverstone's founder, who had retired 5 years earlier. Though no longer involved in day-to-day operations, he still held a significant ownership stake and served as chairman emeritus. "Diane," he said when I answered, "I need to see you. It's important." We met at his sprawling ranch outside Dallas, where he had retreated to enjoy his retirement. At 72, Benjamin still had the sharp mind and direct manner that had made him a successful entrepreneur. "What the hell is happening to my company?" he demanded after we settled in his study. "The stock is tanking, retailers are nervous, and now I hear CoreLogic is cutting ties." "You built that relationship? What's going on?" I explained how Jillian had systematically pushed out experienced executives, including myself, in pursuit of her vision for a younger, more innovative leadership team. "Damn foolishness," Benjamin muttered. "Experience matters in this business, always has." Then came the question I had been anticipating. "And what's this I hear about you starting a competing company with CoreLogic's backing, no less?" I met his gaze evenly. "I invested in CoreLogic years ago, Benjamin. It was a personal financial decision, fully disclosed according to Silverstone's policies on outside investments. As for Evergreen Wellness, yes, I'm launching a new brand after being pushed out of Silverstone. I wasn't ready to retire." Benjamin studied me thoughtfully. "You know, I always told the board they underestimated you. You were never just the partnerships person. You understood the whole business, end to end." He leaned forward. "Tell me honestly, Diane, did you orchestrate this distribution crisis?" "I made investments and career choices that protected my interests," I replied carefully. "Just as you taught me to do." A slow smile spread across Benjamin's face. "Well played." He sat back in his chair. "So what happens now?" "Silverstone's on the ropes, and you're positioned to deliver the knockout punch." "That depends," I said. "Evergreen is my priority now, but I have no desire to see Silverstone destroyed. Too many good people still work there." Benjamin nodded thoughtfully. "The board's called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. They're discussing Jillian's future." He fixed me with an intense gaze. "If changes were made at the top, significant changes, would there be any possibility of salvaging the CoreLogic relationship?" I considered this carefully. "I can't speak for CoreLogic. They're making business decisions based on their own interests. But new leadership might create an opportunity for a fresh conversation." Benjamin smiled at my deliberate use of the term fresh conversation. "I still have some influence with the board. Perhaps it's time I made a few calls." As I drove home, I realized that the situation had evolved beyond my original expectations. What had begun as a simple story of comeuppance was developing into something more complex, a potential industry realignment where I held significant leverage. The headline in the Dallas Business Journal said it all: "Silverstone Naturals CEO ousted after distribution crisis. Founder returns as interim leader." Just 3 months after pushing me out, Jillian Ames had been terminated by the same board that had once championed her fresh perspectives. Benjamin Wright had emerged from retirement to stabilize the company he founded, immediately announcing a return to core values and a renewed focus on key business relationships. I received the news via multiple text messages from former colleagues, each expressing various degrees of satisfaction at this turn of events. Catherine, my former assistant, was particularly jubilant. "Justice, when are you coming back?" But I had no intention of returning. Evergreen Wellness was 1 week away from our official launch, and we had already secured commitments from retailers representing over 60% of our projected first-year sales targets. My phone rang. It was Benjamin Wright. "I assume you've heard the news," he said without preamble. "Congratulations on your return." "It's temporary," he said. "Just until we right the ship." Which brings me to the reason for my call. I need to meet with Harold Peters today, if possible. "I can't speak for Harold," I replied. but you can facilitate an introduction. I'm not asking you to give up on your new business, Diane, Benjamin said, but there's no reason why our firms can't compete in the market. Destroying is not healthy, competition is. Of course, he was correct. My intention had always been to show the results of undervaluing loyalty and experience, not to ruin Silverstone. I'll get in touch with Harold, I gave in. But he will make the final decision. I only ask for that, Benjamin said. The board now realizes exactly what they lost when they let you leave, Diane, for the record. Though it was a little triumph, it was nevertheless gratifying. A month later, I introduced Evergreen Wellness to the industry while standing on a podium at the Natural Products Expo in Anaheim, California. The reaction was tremendous. Potential partners, media people, and interested shops had constantly crowded our stand. I told the group of business executives, our approach is personalization without compromise. We think there is no one-size-fits-all approach to wellness, and our products shouldn't either. I could see Silverstone's much smaller stand across the exhibition hall from where I was on stage. Benjamin Wright was there, as well as a noticeably more varied executive staff that featured some of Jillian's more astute appointments, as well as a number of veterans who had been restored. After our debut, Silverstone and CoreLogics did, in fact, come to a new arrangement. It was not as good as their previous one, but it was sufficient to keep Silverstone's operations from being totally disrupted. Although I felt my proposal that industry diversity was beneficial had affected Harold's thinking, he had taken the decision on his own. Benjamin came over to me after I finished my talk and held out his hand. Very good start, he replied earnestly. You've put together an incredible team. I shook his hand and said, thank you. How is Silverstone doing? Keeping things stable, he remarked. A more practical schedule for expanding our complementary distribution network while preserving CoreLogics for essential products has been approved by the board. He gave a wistful smile. Instead of referring to it as a crisis response, we are now calling it a hybrid approach. I couldn't resist grinning. Perspective is important. Yes, it does, Benjamin concurred. That was something we discovered the hard way. He hesitated. Jillian Ames has accepted a job offer from a small Seattle startup. They are reportedly thrilled about her fresh perspectives. The irony made us both laugh. Andrew joined me at our stand as Benjamin left. He questioned, was that awkward? Not at all, I answered. It seems like a fitting conclusion. True success in business, like in life, does not include devastation. It has to do with approval. I had gone full circle in my path from business loyalist to successful competitor, not with resentment, but with validation of my value.